Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer. Thanks to Transformers Boss for this one. Nick plays a Terminate against Amy's Mishra, Tamer of Mak Fawa. Amy wants to let Nick sacrifice a permanent for the ward ability, and if he does, she wants to use Spellskite to change the target of Terminate to itself. Is this possible? If so, would Nick have to sacrifice a second permanent in order to destroy the Spellskite with that Terminate? Okay, so the first thing that I want to do for this question is take a look at how ward exactly works. As you can see here, it is a triggered ability that triggers at the time when the permanent becomes the target of a spell or ability. So that would mean that during the time when Nick is casting that Terminate, that is the time when the Mishra becomes a target of Terminate, and so that means that the ward ability is going to trigger at that time and go on the stack on top of the Terminate. Now, Amy probably doesn't want to use her life points or mana in order to activate Spellskite's ability if Nick is just planning on letting the spell get countered. So she probably does want to let this ward ability resolve. However, this is where the second important piece of information that we're going to need is going to come up. The way it works in a game of Magic is, in order for a spell or ability on the stack to resolve, then both players would need to pass priority with it being the top object of the stack. So, in order for the Terminate to resolve, Amy and Nick are both going to get priority to cast spells or activate abilities, such as Spellskites, and in order for the Terminate to resolve, they would both have to have this opportunity and do nothing with it. Of course, if Amy does activate the Spellskite when she has this opportunity, then that would mean that the Spellskite ability would also go onto the stack on top of the Terminate, and it would resolve first. So that would mean she would be able to change the target of Terminate to Spellskite, and after Spellskite becomes the target of Terminate, then the Terminate would resolve. And wait a second, notice what I said there. The Spellskite actually did become the target of Terminate. It started out not being the target, and then it turned into being the target. That does indeed match the trigger condition on the ward ability that the Spellskite has. And so that would mean that in order to have the Terminate resolve and kill the Spellskite, Nick would have to sacrifice a second permanent. Ouch, that's pretty mean. Now, I know a lot of people out there are probably thinking something really sinister right now. Well, if that is how it works, well, what would stop Amy from just continuing to pay 2 life to activate the Spellskite ability until Nick either gives up or runs out of permanents? Well, it turns out that this trick works pretty well, but not that well. And the reason is because the ward ability uses the word becomes. Anytime you see that word on a trigger condition, it's looking for a transition in the game state. It needs to see a game state that does not include that trigger condition existing at one point, and at a later point it needs to see a game state that does include that trigger condition. If we have the Spellskite start out as the target and end up as the target, well, it didn't really become the target, did it? So that would mean that the ward ability would not trigger in such a case. Now, if Amy had a second Spellskite, it would be possible for her to do this trick, bouncing the target of the Terminate back and forth between those two until Nick either ran out of permanents or gave up. But she would need a second Spellskite to do it. Just having one would not be able to make the Spellskite become the target of the Terminate again and again. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.